When we first open chapter 6, the first thing that we will see is a photo of the Rorschach test, which looks very similar to Rorschach's mask, and it also reminds us of Kovac's other name. Maybe he was named after Rorschach input test, which is a test that psychologists use to examine a person's personality and emotional functioning. It always has more than one answer, and it judges people in so many ways, just as Kovac's or Rorschach has more than one personality and sees things from a different way of perspective. On page 2, panel 5, Dr. Long calls Rorschach by his true name, Walter, in hope and attempt to recall the human inside him and talk to the character he was before he became Rorschach, to talk to Walter. And then we go in a flashback from Walter's childhood and memories in page 3. It starts showing how hard it is for him as a child and how much hate he received when he was still an innocent kid. And then moving to page 9, panel 7, Walter talks about Rorschach as if he was something more and greater than just an identity that he takes on, remembering that he refers to his mask as his face, which shows that Rorschach became a big part of his life, a new character that he likes more than his true one, a total new and a different personality. On page 10, we start seeing how Rorschach was born, thanks to Dr. Manhattan fabric, that later becomes his mask, his new better-looking face, which now enabled him to be able to look in the mirror with no fear, a face that he could look at for hours with comfort. And then on page 13, panel 2, the line, this panel, none of you understand. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me, shows Rorschach as a powerful character. Although he's locked up in prison and he's not going through one of his best days, he still has everything in control. And it also shows his perspective, way of thinking perfectly. If we look at the low part of the panel, we will see Dr. Longs is using Bane colors, Go Bane and Bane Away, which shows that thinking of Rorschach causes him anxiety. And one of the most important things we can see in this panel is that Dr. Long starts talking about his patient as Rorschach and not as Kovac's, which is a sign that he is breaking down. And that seems to continue on page 14, when Dr. Long slips in panel 1 and catches himself before finishing the name, Rorschach. And now he seems to have 3 bottles of painkillers and not 2. That shows the increase in his medication. And then at panel 1 and panel 3, Rorschach says that he was always Kovac's pretending to be Rorschach before he puts the mask on. And soon we will see the process of how Rorschach completely became his new character, Rorschach and not Kovac's. And then in page 15, panel 6, Rorschach says, "We don't do this because we're permitted. We do it because we have to." And that relates even changing the mask. And then again, we see a untitled Who Watches the Watchman being ignored by Rorschach, who has turned his back on it as he walks out of the building.
Chapter 6 is titled The Abyss Gaze, also which is symbolic to the Nietzsche quotation at the end of the chapter. Nietzsche is saying that spending too much time around darkness and despair leads to despair of one's own. This advice is meant not for Rorschach, but rather for Dr. Long. In spending time with the patient, the doctor is convinced that he can cure Rorschach. An observation the doctor wife agree with and point out that if there is one doctor who can cure Rorschach of his mental disease, it is Dr. Long. Working with this particular patient has opened an entirely new world to the doctor, and the world is such an ugly one. As Dr. Long comes to discover, the patient's childhood has undoubtedly shaped him into the morally questionable vigilante he is at present. Rorschach saw his mother being violated by numerous men and had wanted to protect her, but at the same time, he was teased about her occupation, which ultimately made him resent her and her activities. Years later, he remained disgusted by sex and has very little use for women, particularly those like his landlady or prostitute. He seems fairly asexual, or could actually be gay. He does not even like to be reminded about the female form, which explains why he cut up the dress meant for Katie Genovese before storing it. The man that Rorschach indeed is, that is, Walter Kovacs, take on his facade to do what he thinks is right to protect the weak, even though his method may not be proper, and he might be punished the wrong people for the wrong crime. Walter sees Rorschach as something more than the identity he takes on. In this chapter, there's some clues on nuclear war. For the first one, in this chapter, there's many clues about the nuclear war. First, Russian invade Afghanistan and the American intervene when Nixon stated that he will respond with maximum force if needed. And this is kind of controversial to real life because in Nixon's presidency, he built closer diplomatic and economic relationship with the Soviet Union, but were ended by the next president, Jimmy Carter. The meaning for maximum force is about nuclear power. Also, another clue is the Hiroshima lover gravity, an image that reminds us of the devastation brought by the United States nuclear attack on Japan during World War II, and in page 28, panel 3, the siren of a nuclear evacuation. The central theme in this chapter is metamorphosis, which loosely translates to transformation. Dr. Long describes a butterfly he sees in Rorschach's blood. This is evidence of the transformation Rorschach has undergone in this chapter, a transformation symbolized by the presence of this butterfly blood. The audience discovered the event that transformed Walter Kovacs into Rorschach, concomitant the present-day narrative that details the metamorphosis of Dr. Long from the upbeat psychiatrist, treating Rorschach to a person more akin to his infamous patient than he could have ever imagined. Both of these characters transform and deliberate from their stereotypical kind of reasoning. On the other hand, there is an issue of people not being able to deal with the reality and truth. Dr. Long described the caption of the grubs as vertically tunneling away from the light. This demonstrates the society's inability to handle the reality. The doctor's wife asks of the detail of Rorschach's past, but when Mel tells her of the horror, she is reviled by it and pulls away. Another theme in this chapter is immorality and violence. This is mainly seen through how Rorschach's mother makes her daily life as a prostitute and how that affects how Rorschach perceives women in general. He despises all women and sees them as weak objects of male gratification, while cannot rise to be more than that. On the other hand, having seen how men used to treat his mother and the fact that he could not do anything bad than to save her, and how a woman was killed while neighbors looked on and did not do anything to save her. It takes on brutality and violence to destroy whatever or whoever he considered a threat or oppressor of the weak. This is his little way of making the world a better place. Dr. Long commented that he could stare at Kovacs for hours, except that he stares back. It's a direct commentary on the title for this chapter, The Abyss Gaze also. This title is symbolic in foreshadowing Dr. Long's psychological journey through the chapter, in his attempt to rehabilitate Walter Kovacs, alias Rorschach. Dr. Long will come to view the world in the manner that Rorschach does and ultimately become more like his patient than he ever conceived possible. Apart from this title, the burning fire is also a symbolic of the transformation Rorschach undergoes. The dressers goes up in flame while Rorschach talks over the scene. commenting how he felt cleansed as he if born anew in that